These are stories where love meets betrayal. Stories that make you see life a little differently.
I never imagined that rain could become the soundtrack of my life. But here I am, sitting by a window streaked with cold drops, watching the world blur behind the glass, and finally forcing myself to speak the words I've avoided for far too long. My name doesn't matter, at least not for this story, because this story is not about who I was. It is about who I became after everything fell apart. It all started on a Thursday evening, one of those nights when the city felt heavier than usual, when the sky hung low, swollen with unspoken grief, and the streets shimmered under a curtain of rain.
I was coming home later than I planned. Work had kept me longer again, deadlines piling up, responsibilities stretching me thin. But there was a piece of comfort waiting for me at home, or so I believed. A warm apartment, soft lights, and a man I had loved for 7 years. His name was Daniel, a quiet, composed man with a gentle smile that had always calmed me. Someone I trusted without hesitation, someone I believed would never purposely hurt me. I remember walking into our apartment that night, my coat soaking wet, hair dripping, shoes squeaking on the floor. The sound echoed strangely, as if the walls themselves sensed something I didn't. "Daniel?" I called out as I closed the door behind me. No answer. At first, I thought he was asleep, or wearing headphones, or maybe in the shower. But then I saw it. A glow under the gap of the bedroom door. A soft, warm light and shadows moving. My stomach tightened, but I pushed the thought away. I forced myself to believe nothing was wrong, because nothing had ever been wrong before, because we were stable, safe, comfortable. I walked closer, step by step, feeling the weight of something I couldn't name pressing on my chest. When I opened the door, everything inside me froze. Daniel was sitting on the edge of the bed, his phone in his hand, and on the screen, glowing painfully bright in the dim room, was a message from someone named Claire. I didn't recognize the name, but I recognized the words. "Last night was unforgettable. I can still feel your hands on my skin." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My voice cracked when I finally spoke. "What is that?" He looked up at me, and I swear in that split second, I watched guilt wash over his face like a wave. "It's not what you think," he said quickly. Too quickly. I stepped into the room, cold rainwater dripping from my coat onto the carpet, my fingers trembling, my heart pounding in my ears. "Then what is it?" I whispered. He didn't answer, not immediately. He just stared at me, his mouth opening, closing, as if searching for a lie that didn't sound like a lie. And that silence, that awful, suffocating silence, told me everything before he even spoke. "I'm sorry," he finally said, barely audible, like the words physically hurt him. I felt the floor tilt under me, as if the world had cracked, shifted, leaving me standing on uneven ground. "How long?" I asked. He hesitated, looking away, and that hesitation stabbed deeper than any confession could. 6 months, he whispered. 6 months. Half a year.
Half a year of lies, of coming home late, of kissing me goodnight, of holding me while carrying someone else's scent on his skin. I felt something collapse inside me, like a fragile wall that had been holding back a storm I was not ready to face. I turned away from him, my reflection staring back at me from the window, rain sliding down the glass like tears the sky was crying for me. "How could you?" I whispered, more to myself than to him.
He stood up, took a step toward me, but I stepped back, instinctively, as if his presence burned. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said. The classic line. One I had heard friends cry about. One I believed would never come from the man I loved. "You didn't mean for it to happen?" I repeated, my voice hollow, breaking on the edges. I stared at him, searching for the man I knew, the one who held my hand during thunderstorms, who made me tea when I was sick, who kissed my forehead every morning. But he was gone, replaced by a stranger wearing his skin. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the windowsill to steady myself. "Do you love her?" I asked. He closed his eyes, and the fact that he had to think shattered something inside me beyond repair. "No," he said finally, "I don't love her. I love you." But his words felt like ash in my mouth, meaningless, empty, like trying to glue together a broken vase and expecting it to hold water again. "I need air," I whispered, and I walked out of the room, out of the apartment, out into the rain. The cold drops hit my face, soaking through my clothes, chilling me to the bone, but I barely felt anything. My whole body was numb. I walked for hours, through streets blurred with neon lights and reflections, cars splashing through puddles, thunder rumbling faintly in the distance. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just needed to move, to keep walking, to keep breathing, because stopping meant facing the reality waiting for me. Every step felt heavy, like dragging chains behind me. Chains forged from betrayal, from broken promises, from the ghost of the life I thought I had. At some point, I found myself sitting on a bench in a small park. Umbrellas passed by, people rushed home, but I just sat there, rain pouring down on me, washing the makeup off my face, mixing with the tears I refused to acknowledge. I tried to replay moments, signs I must have missed, nights he didn't answer my calls, mornings he left earlier than usual, the sudden distance, the excuses. But trust blinds you, and love makes you believe what you want to believe. I pulled my knees to my chest, wrapping my arms around them, trying to hold myself together, trying not to fall apart completely. And yet, despite everything, a part of me wondered, was this my fault? Was I not enough? Did I work too much? Did I stop being exciting, beautiful, interesting? Those thoughts cut deeper than any betrayal, because they came from inside me, from the place where self-love should have lived. I don't know how long I stayed there, long enough for my fingers to turn numb, for my clothes to cling to me, for the world to fade into a blur of water and shadows. Eventually, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't want to look, but I knew who it was. "Daniel, where are you? Please come home. I'm worried. Please talk to me."
I stared at the messages, feeling nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just emptiness. I didn't reply. Instead, I stood up slowly, my legs stiff, trembling, and began walking again. Not toward home, but toward the one person who had always been there for me, my sister, Emma. When I reached Emma's apartment, the rain had already soaked me so deeply that every step left a small puddle behind. The hallway lights flickered softly above me as I knocked on her door, not too loudly, almost hoping she wouldn't hear me, almost wishing I could disappear instead of saying the words I carried inside me. But the door opened within seconds. The look on her face when she saw me said everything. Worry, confusion, and then something sharper, protective. Like a mother wolf seeing her wounded sister return from the forest. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What happened?" I couldn't speak. Not yet. All I managed was a small, broken sound, the kind that escapes when the heart can't hold itself together anymore. She pulled me inside immediately. The warmth of her apartment wrapped around me, but my body didn't feel it. I was shaking, partly from the cold, but mostly from everything that had been crushed inside me. "Sit," she said softly, guiding me toward the couch. "I'll get a towel and something warm." I nodded, staring at the floor, watching droplets fall from my hair and coat. They landed on the wooden boards, spreading like tiny gray stars, fading into one another until they were gone. Emma returned with a towel and a blanket, and when she wrapped the blanket around me, it felt like the first safe touch I had received in hours. "What happened?" she asked again, gently this time, like someone handling fragile glass. I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. They didn't know how to leave me yet, how to exist outside my body. She waited. She always knew how to wait for me, even when we were little. Emma had always been the patient one, the calm one, the one who could sit beside you in silence until you were ready to speak. Finally, I whispered. "Daniel cheated." The word tasted metallic, bitter, like something poisonous I had been forced to swallow. Emma's eyes widened, then narrowed, anger rising like heat from a flame. "Who?" she asked. "I don't know. Someone named Claire." I took a shaky breath. "It's been going on for 6 months. Emma sat back slowly, as if she needed to absorb the blow with me. She didn't curse. She didn't shout. She just placed a hand on my knee, grounding me, reminding me I wasn't alone. "I'm so sorry," she said quietly. And those words, simple as they were, broke me. I covered my face with my hands, and the tears I had held back for hours finally escaped. Spilling through my fingers, warm and relentless, I cried for the life I lost, for the trust that shattered, for the love that had once felt safe, and for the version of myself that still believed everything would last forever. Emma pulled me into her arms, and I let myself collapse. For a long time, the only sounds in the room were my sobs, the rain outside, and the soft rhythm of Emma's breathing as she held me like I was something precious, something worth protecting. Eventually, when my tears slowed, she pulled back and looked into my eyes. "What are you going to do?" she asked softly. "I don't know," I whispered. "I don't know how to breathe with this. let alone make decisions. She nodded, as if she understood the weight of every word. "You can stay here as long as you need," she said. "You don't have to go back there tonight, or tomorrow, or ever." A tiny spark of relief flickered in me, but then, just as quickly, guilt followed. "My things are there," I whispered. "My clothes, my work laptop, everything. We'll deal with that later." Her voice was firm, decisive, the voice of someone who refused to let me slip through the cracks. "You're not going back there tonight. You're not going back while you're like this." I nodded, because she was right. Because if I returned now, I might break in ways I wouldn't be able to fix. Emma made me tea, chamomile with honey. The same thing she used to make me after breakups in high school, after failed college exams, after our parents' divorce. She always healed me with warm things. I held the mug in my hands, letting the steam warm my face, letting the scent calm me ever so slightly. The rain outside became heavier, tapping against the window like fingertips, like distant whispers calling me back to the moment. Then Emma sat across from me, her legs folded under her, her expression steady. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked. I did, and I didn't, but I needed to. So I started from the beginning, from the moment I walked through the door, to the message I saw on his phone, to the look on his face, to the confession. And Emma listened to every word, her jaw tightening, her hands curling into fists at times. When I finished, silence settled between us, heavy but clear. "He doesn't deserve you," she said. "He doesn't deserve a single tear you're crying tonight." I wanted to believe her, but my heart was still tangled around him, wrapped in years of memories and shared moments. "Then why does it hurt so much?" I whispered. "Because you loved him," she said gently. "Because you trusted him. And betrayal always hurts the most when it comes from the person who was supposed to protect you from it." I stared into my tea, watching the surface tremble as my hand shook. "I feel stupid," I whispered. "You're not stupid." She leaned closer. "You're human." But I didn't feel human. I felt hollow, scraped out, emptied. We stayed up for hours, talking, quietly, slowly. And somewhere between the third cup of tea and the soft hum of Emma's heater, exhaustion washed over me. "Come on," she said, gently pulling me to my feet. "You need to sleep." She led me to the guest room, a small, cozy space with soft lights and a neatly folded blanket on the bed. A space where I had slept many times before. But tonight, it felt different. Tonight, it felt like a refuge, like a new beginning I wasn't ready for, but desperately needed. When I lay down, the sheets felt warm, grounding, safe. For the first time since the night began, I felt like I could breathe. Emma turned off the light, paused in the doorway, and whispered, "You're going to be okay, I promise." She closed the door softly behind her, and I stared at the ceiling, listening to the rain, the steady rhythm. The world felt quiet, too quiet, and in that silence, the memories began to surface again. The way Daniel used to hold me from behind while I cooked, the way he whispered goodnight, The way he laughed when I said something ridiculous. The way he kissed me on the forehead before leaving for work. All lies now. Or at least, all overshadowed by his betrayal. I turned on my side, pulling the blanket tightly around me, trying to stop the ache in my chest from spreading. But it spread anyway, and I realized, as another tear slid down my cheek, that the woman I was yesterday, the one who believed in loyalty, in stability, in love that stayed, was gone. I didn't know who I was now. I didn't know who I would become. But as the rain continued to whisper outside, I knew the story wasn't over. Not even close. I woke up the next morning to the soft gray light of dawn filtering through the guest room curtains. And for a moment, I forgot where I was. There was a brief, fragile second where my mind reached for the familiar shape of Daniel beside me, for the warmth of his arm draped over my waist, for the quiet rhythm of his breathing. But the space next to me was empty, cold, still. And then everything came crashing back. The message on his phone, his hesitation, the confession, the rain soaking my clothes as I walked through the city, Emma's arms around me as I cried. My chest tightened, and I curled into myself, pulling the blanket closer as if it could protect me from the truth. I didn't want to get up. I didn't want to face the world. I didn't want to face myself. But I knew I couldn't hide in this room forever. After several minutes of gathering the strength I didn't feel, I finally stood up, washed my face, and walked slowly into the living room. Emma was already awake, sitting on the sofa with a cup of coffee, her hair in a messy bun, wrapped in a blanket. When she saw me, she gave a small, soft smile. "Morning," she said. "Morning," I whispered back. She handed me a cup of tea she had clearly prepared long before I woke up, probably expecting I'd need it. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked gently. "I tried," I said. "I don't know if I actually did." She nodded, understanding without pushing. I sat down beside her, letting the warmth of the tea seep into my hands. The silence between us was comfortable, but the thoughts swirling in my head were anything but. After a moment, I spoke. "I have to go back today." Emma didn't answer immediately. She just looked at me, studying my face as if trying to read how fragile I still was. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. "You don't have to rush." "I know," I said, "but my things are there, and I can't avoid that apartment forever. I need to face him, at least long enough to take what's mine." Emma reached out and squeezed my hand. "I'll go with you," she said. "You don't have to." "I'm coming," she interrupted firmly. "You're not doing this alone." And I didn't argue, because deep down, I knew I couldn't do this alone. The rain had stopped by the time we reached my building, but the sky was still heavy, clouds hanging low like bruises across the horizon. The hallway looked the same, smelled the same, sounded the same, but I wasn't the same. My hand trembled slightly as I reached for the key, but I unlocked the door anyway. The moment it opened, the scent of our home hit me. Lavender candles, Daniel's cologne, the faint smell of the coffee machine. It felt like stepping inside a memory. Daniel was in the living room, sitting on the couch with his elbows on his knees, staring at nothing. When he heard the door, he looked up, and for a second, His face lit up with something like hope. But then he saw Emma behind me, and that hope flickered, dimmed. He stood up slowly. "You came back," he said quietly. "I came for my things," I replied, my voice steady but cold. I didn't recognize the tone, but it felt like armor. Daniel swallowed hard. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Please." "Not now," I said. "I'm not here for a conversation." He nodded, but his eyes begged anyway. Emma stepped closer to me, a silent wall of protection. I walked past him without looking at his face, because if I looked, I wasn't sure what I'd feel. Anger? Sadness? Grief? All of them? None of them? I went straight to the bedroom. The air inside the room felt different, heavier, as if the betrayal still lingered like a ghost trapped between the walls. My clothes were neatly hung in the closet. My books were still on the nightstand. My perfume bottles still lined the dresser. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. I started packing quietly, methodically, not trusting my emotions enough to pause. Daniel appeared in the doorway after a few minutes. He didn't step inside. He just stood there, watching me with eyes full of guilt. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said softly. I didn't answer. I folded a sweater instead. "It was a mistake," he continued. "A stupid, selfish mistake." I still didn't answer. He stepped closer, cautiously, as if approaching a wounded animal that might break or bite. "She meant nothing," he whispered. "It didn't mean anything. Not compared to what we have." I finally spoke. "What we had," I corrected. He flinched, as if the words were a knife. "Please," he whispered, "we can fix this. We've been together 7 years. You can't just throw that away." I turned to him slowly. "I didn't throw anything away," I said. "You did. When you chose someone else. When you lied to me for 6 months. When you looked me in the eyes every day and let me believe everything was normal." His jaw tightened, his eyes watering. "I was stupid," he said. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to ask why. Why her? Why me? Why destroy something that was supposed to be safe? But instead, I took a breath and said, "Sorry doesn't undo anything." He reached out slowly, as if hoping to touch my arm, but I stepped back immediately. Emma moved beside me, and Daniel stopped. "Just let me fix this," he begged. "Let me try." "You had 6 months to fix it. You had 6 months to choose me." My voice cracked slightly, but only slightly. "And you didn't." He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Nothing he could say would change what he'd already done. I zipped my suitcase, the sound slicing through the silence. Then I looked around the room one last time. At the bed where we shared hundreds of mornings. At the window where we watched summer storms. At the walls that held so much laughter and now held so much pain. I took a slow breath. "I'm done," I whispered. Daniel's breath hitched. "No, please, don't say that." But I already had, and I meant it. I walked out of the bedroom, out of the apartment, out of the life I once thought was unbreakable. Emma followed close behind me, She didn't say anything until we reached the street. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but steady. "I'm proud of you," she said. I didn't feel proud. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left only echoes behind. We got into her car, and as she started the engine, the rain began again. Soft at first, then heavier, until it was drumming against the windshield in steady, rhythmic waves. I watched the droplets race down the glass, merging, breaking apart, disappearing, and that's when it hit me. Sometimes love isn't lost in a single moment. It dissolves slowly, quietly, like rain on a window pane, until all that's left is a faint trail of what used to be. The days that followed were hard, worse than I expected. Some mornings I woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there. Some nights I cried until my pillow was damp. But every day, little by little, I breathed easier. Every day I reclaimed a piece of myself. Every day I discovered a strength I didn't know I had. Emma helped me look for a small apartment, somewhere quiet, somewhere safe, somewhere mine. I went to work again, even though I felt like a ghost moving through the motions. I went on walks in the evening, letting the cool air clear my mind. I started therapy, started journaling, started rebuilding myself from the inside out. And with time, the pain stopped feeling like an open wound and started feeling like a scar. Still there, still sensitive, but no longer bleeding. One day, weeks later, Daniel sent me a long message saying he regretted everything, that he would always love me, that he hoped someday I could forgive him. I didn't respond. Not out of anger, but out of peace. Because some chapters don't need closure from the people who broke you. Sometimes the closure comes from walking away, healing, and choosing yourself. I'm not the woman I was before the betrayal. I'm quieter now, more cautious, but also stronger, wiser, braver. I learned that love can hurt, but losing yourself hurts more. I learned that trust is precious, and once shattered, it can't always be rebuilt. I learned that sometimes the rain that drowns you is the same rain that cleanses you. And I learned that the end of one story can be the beginning of another. Tonight, as I sit by my new window, listening to the rain fall softly outside, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time. Peace. Not because the past is gone, but because I survived it. And now, finally, I am free.
Sometimes pain doesn't come from enemies, but from the ones we trusted the most. Maybe that's how life teaches us to see the truth. Could you forgive such a betrayal? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. More stories are coming, stories that will touch your heart.